Folks, if you'll please be seated, please come under the tent. And for those of you viewing the funeral online, thank you for your patience. Just a gentle reminder for people present here at the cemetery, if you have a cell phone, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. Officiating this afternoon is Rabbi Dror Chankengold from the Anshe Emet Synagogue.
He's right there. He's right there. It's just very fun. You know what they have to do? They have to make the marker. They don't want to damage it when they can grave. So the marker's right behind this big marker. You'll see it after the funeral. As a memorial.
As we gather, we're going to begin with the ritual of Kriya. Eliza, I know you did that at home with a piece of cloth. Michael, you have the ribbon, so I'm going to come and help you with that. We'll begin with Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. Bino deshet yavitzeni. God gives me rest in green pastures. Al mei menuchot yinachaneleni. Nafshi yeshovev. God leads me beside still waters to restore my soul. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. God guides me on the right paths, for that is God's very essence. Gam ki elech begetzel mavet, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Lo irara ki ata imati, I won't fear evil, for God, you are with me. Shivtecha mishantecha hema yenachamuni, your staff and your rod, God, they comfort me. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorarai, you prepare a banquet before me in the presence of my foes. Dishanta Vashem Roshi Kosi Revaya. You anoint my head with oil and my cup runs over. Ach tov v'chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai. Surely goodness and kindness should be my portion all the days of my life. Ashavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim, and I'll sit in the house in the presence of God, now and forever. Today we gather to honor the memory of Arlene Joyce Weitzman Richman. Arlene was the daughter of Sidney and Anne, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing. She was the sister and sister-in-law of Gerald and Yafa, Zichronam Livracha. She was the wife of Harry, beside whom she is being buried today. May his memory also be a blessing. Arlene is remembered, of course, by her children Eliza Richman Halev and Michael Richman, and by their spouses, Jeff Spinner Halev and Harrison Parker. She was treasured by her grandchildren, Avishai, Davida, and Shoshana, and she's honored by her nephew, Jeremy Weitzman, and his wife, Eliza, and by their children, Ephraim and Yafa and Shlomo. To all of Arlene's family members, I know everyone offers their deepest condolences. A funeral in Hebrew is called a levaya, an accompaniment. It means that at the final stages of our lives, we are not left alone, but rather accompanied towards the beyond with memories and love and words and song and by people who we loved. Arlene was accompanied by a shomer who stood by her side to make sure she has not been alone this whole time. And she's now accompanied by us and by the words that we share to honor the way in which she lived and the impact that she left. The best way we can accompany her is to share words from those who knew her best. So we're going to hear today from Jeremy, from Avishai, from Eliza, and from Michael. And then I'll share some words as well. Jeremy, we'll begin with you.
Okay. My relationship with my Aunt Arlene, I would say, and my Uncle Harry, was characterized mainly by what struck me the most about them was their generosity. I'm an English teacher, so I tell all my students to be specific, so I'll try and be as specific as I can, here. At one point, as I've shared with Michael and I'm sure Lisa, they took me in for a month when I was, I think, 11, something like that, about 11 years old. And I can't think of something that would be less fun, for adults, and I was a tough kid, not the easiest, person, and they did it with such grace, and, I always, felt so incredibly at home. And that's, they did it without batting an eyelash. The thought of taking in an 11-year-old boy at, for a month is really, something that I never got over, and they really, made me feel so at home. I don't have the greatest memory for individual, moments, but I still remember going to like an all-you-can-eat place with them, and like all these we went to the, I don't know if you remember the 99-cent movie theater, and I still have like these, great memories from that. Beyond that month in the summer, there was also this may come off as a little crass, but I really don't mean it to be. They were very, very generous financially also. Whenever I got a gift, it was always, my wife and I, for example, for a wedding, were, absolutely floored. They did those things without thinking much about it. You could just tell that. And there was a friend of mine whom I met when I was 3 years old, Giancarlo Paletti, who I'm still, friendly with, plays piano. And when they were in New York, when Harry and Arlene were in New York, they went to see with me, him play at, a little concert at his house. And Giancarlo later told me that he sent them, that they sent him a check. He said, and I forgot what, I'm not going to, I try and be as, honest, as truthful as I can be. I don't remember the amount, but he was very impressed. And, they just went to see him play, right? And it's just so characteristic of who they were. Very, very giving people. And Arlene, would also be very giving in terms of just her time with me. I talked to her quite a great deal about some of that I may not have shared this, but with some of the struggles that I was going through, and she was very receptive and listened, and I know that can't be, easy either. But she always, was just a very giving person. And I just wanted to share that, how much I appreciated it. And I will miss her dearly.
Beautiful. Avishai.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'll be brief. Grandma never did anything quickly, I would say. And in doing so, she managed to outlive, I think, pretty much her entire generation for the most part. And for that, I say kol hakavod. My my greatest memories of Grandma are, as Jeremy mentioned, her generosity, but also the nights just sitting at Bonefish Grill or at restaurants of various sorts. They were big fans of, the classic Americana type of restaurant, and that was, something that we always did together as a family. Grandma did not always, I think, know the best way to show how much she cared about her grandchildren. But in retrospect, I think she really did care about us a lot more than she was ever willing to let on. Or she was able to let on, perhaps. I think that she cared by making sure that we looked both ways before crossing the street, and in making sure that we were being safe and hygienic and taking care of ourselves. And I think that she cared in making sure that we had enough to eat, and things that, as a young person, I was not so appreciative of, but now in retrospect, I think I very much am. And the thing that I really appreciate most about Grandma is that she did raise my mom, Ema, and for that I'm very grateful. Whether on purpose or not, she did a fantastic job, and yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Aliza? Sure, Michael.
Mine's a little longer. I hope you don't mind. But thank you all for being here. It's really, it's so nice of you all to have come from New York, the suburbs, California, New York, London. I've been going through some therapy, so this might be a little rough, but I'm gonna just say what I wrote and see where it goes. I want to start by saying that this morning in group therapy, I recognize that you, my sister Elise, you and I may have had different mothers. And before I get too far, I want to acknowledge that we're here. No, it's okay. We're here to honor my mother, which I could say will be easy, but I won't. She was a complex person, and yet I don't think I ever really knew much about her. What was her childhood like? Her favorite food? Her favorite ice cream flavor? Maybe all that doesn't matter. I do remember her telling me that her mother always said she had street smarts, while her brother had book smarts, and she hated that. And what happened to her after childhood, when she got married? I don't really know. She was my mom. She made me play 12 different sports. That's like one every year, trying to find the best sport for me, which never really worked out. She made me take piano lessons. She took us grocery shopping and clothes shopping, often shopping for herself, just dragging us along. That wasn't fun. And sometimes she'd be late to pick us up from Hebrew school or services, and I wondered if she would ever come and get me. She told us to get good grades, and that for every boy mouse, there's a girl mouse. I remember those Saturday nights when the babysitter would come over and we'd have TV dinners, and my mom would come into the kitchen and show us what she was wearing to go out. I thought she was so stylish and pretty. She stood up for me when I was bullied and was a shoulder to cry on when I had a teacher that I thought was too hard on me. And sometimes she would defend me when my dad was upset at something I had done. Sometimes she was my best friend, and maybe that wasn't the best thing for a young boy who didn't have many friends, but I loved her. The thing is, I don't think I ever got to know the true Arlene, and now when I look at her life, I think maybe she was lonely, Maybe she was afraid. When her husband was working late into the evening or stopping at the grocery store to pick up and drop off something to his mother, she was angry. Why didn't he spend more time with her? Maybe it was her mother and my favorite grandma who had very high expectations of her daughter. She could be tough, Anne. Maybe Mom was trying to be someone she thought her mother wanted her to be, and later her husband. Or maybe she was trying to be the mother that Dr. Spock was spousing. And maybe she made mistakes trying to be a good mother or grandmother. But I hope we can all remember the good things she did. When I announced that I wanted to go to school on the East Coast, my dad said, "If Nebraska was good enough for me, it's good enough for you." He said he wouldn't pay for a fancy college. But my mom reassured me that I could go wherever I got in, and she would help with the finances. And she pushed me to go to Washington University at great expense to her. And I'm not talking monetary. And even though my leaving would be sad for her, she never wavered in her commitment to my education. And we did it with financial aid, my work exchange student loans, and her contribution. I hope each of us can remember some particular moment in time when she came through for us. And if we can't, we can at least say it was a good thing she had us, or we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have our own beautiful lives and families or future. I do know she was opinionated, and if you were with her, she was accepting. And if you weren't, if you were too rebellious, or you weren't normal, okay, let's just say gay, she withdrew her unconditional love. And having a mother that loves you conditionally, well, I could write a whole thesis about that, and I won't. Scrappy, resourceful, survivor, she was all those things. I mean, this woman was fighting to the end, wanting to hang on to life, no matter what. She couldn't speak for several years, and yet occasionally she would muster the strength to say, "You have a nice voice." The compliment coming after I sang the entire score of The Sound of Music on one of my infrequent visits. So I hope that in the last few years and those final months and days and hours, that she reconciled herself and felt good about the person she was and what she brought to the world. Because I know we're here because she was our mother. And if she hadn't been, then we wouldn't exist. None of us. Okay, well, you in the back row would have existed, and you two would have existed. And I want to thank Harrison for supporting me through my mom's decline, coming with me to North Carolina and seeing her so gaunt and struggling to breathe. And more importantly, putting up with me and my complexities for the past 37 years. Sometimes acting like my dad and putting my family first at great expense to Harrison. And sometimes acting like my mom and putting up walls and not allowing myself to be vulnerable. Compartmentalizing different aspects of myself that maybe, like my mom, weren't really being my true self. I'm working to tear those walls down, and I hope to forge a better relationship with Harrison and with my family. No one has to be alone. I love you, Mom, and I will miss you.
I wasn't sure I'd be able to do this, so we'll see how far I get. And Michael, you nailed it. We did have two different moms. Mom, we're just a few days shy of your 94th birthday. And this is really the final goodbye. I'm glad that we got to say Vidui together every morning this past week. That was our goodbye, and I hope that you could hear me. We had a rough go, you and I. And I hope you know that I tried my best to honor you and be respectful while trying to honor myself. And in the latter half of our life together, I think I did a better job. As a teenager, I would think that you and Dad came together and created this maze that Michael and I went through, but we were on really different paths. It is so good for me to hear from Michael what you were for him. Well, I know that from what Michael has told me, that our relationship, yours and my mom, shaped him too. He learned about everything he didn't want to be in relationship to you. Like your machatunista, Mushi, taught us. You learn from people how you want to be and how you don't want to be. And seeing how Michael's path through the maze aligned so well with who you were is beautiful for me. Thank you for getting that opportunity to be a shining parent for Michael, even though I know that it had its challenges as well. Thank you for trying so hard and giving us your all. After years of therapy in my 20s, I came to realize that you and Dad did the best you could as parents. And that was a huge realization for me. I tried. I really tried. And I know that you tried too. And I really did my best to take care of you in the end. And I want you to know that. And then we were so lucky. We found Jill, who was like another devoted daughter in ways that I could not be. Jill, I send my deepest gratitude out to you. Mom, you survived them all. You're the last of your generation. Be it your tenacity or your oblivion, you lived longer than any relative. And the Brandts were not a long-living genetic pool. Your life was a testament to modern medicine and your will. Your life was also one of the many legends of the fortunate American immigrant experience, the Jewish reality for millennia. Along with the shift in your lifetime, always political. Along with the shift in your lifetime was the reclamation of our ancestral homeland, Israel. When I was young, so was our new nation state, and it was very important to us as a family. It shaped me. When I was living on kibbutz, I had a poster that said, "Israel is real." I brought a stone from the Holy Land. Well, I forgot it today, so I will be back tomorrow to place here on Dad's grave, right next to you. So in Israel, as a people, we were home again at last. And now we bury you in the land that you knew as home. We no longer have a lot of community here in Chicago. The tale of the wandering Jews. Your proud, loving, and pained parents, Sidney Shlomo Weitzman and Anne Brandt, were both immigrant children, and they did their very best to provide for you and your baby brother Gerald. And we, your children, and our beautiful, smart, talented, and adventurous grandchildren, Avishai Shlomo, Davida Sigal, and Shoshana Sivan, are the ongoing tale of your successful immigrant story. Thank you for all your hard work. May we merit your legacy and honor you with our continued successes. Please rest peacefully now. And if you could, please put in some good energy to bring your sechel, your street smarts, and some peace to Israel-Palestine too. I hope you find Dad again, and Grandma and Grandpa Weitzman, and all your beloved aunties and uncles and cousins. They love you so much. And thank you for your generosity, especially hearing about it with Michael in college, and from you, Jeremy. But you were always generous with all of us in the ways that you could be, and sometimes in ways that I couldn't handle very well. I love you, Mom. Blessed be.
Arlene was born on June 4th, 1930, and she grew up on the south side of Chicago during the Depression. She was tended to not only by her parents, who we've mentioned, but also by her beloved Aunt Esther. Arlene's childhood involved time spent at Lake Michigan, which, as her son-in-law Harrison pointed out, she continued to love and draw strength from throughout her entire life. Arlene was very close with her extended family, with the cousins with whom she would spend holidays. Arlene adored her father, who was musical. Sidney Shlomo sang and he played piano. From him, Arlene developed a lifelong love affair with music. Arlene attended South Shore High School and was invited to sing a duet in her graduation ceremony. Following high school, Arlene went on to attend the University of Indiana in Bloomington. She spent 2 years in Indiana studying education and music. Ultimately, these twin passions would define Arlene's life's work. Arlene left the world on an auspicious date on the Jewish calendar, Lag BaOmer. In the period of time that stretches between Pesach, when we commemorate our freedom from slavery, and Shavuot, when we celebrate the gift of Matan Torah, the gift of the Torah, we count 50 days that span from one moment to the next. Traditionally, the first 32 days are a somber time of mourning and grief. Day 33, Lag BaOmer, is a day of relief and release. Arlene left the world not on a day of devastation, but on one of celebration. She left the world not with tragedy and brokenness, but rather she left it a little bit brighter, a little bit more magical, a little bit more musical than she found it. Today we honor in the spirit of Lag BaOmer and the spirit of Arlene what it is that Arlene gave, how she lived, and her legacy, which will extend beyond those 94 years. On each day of the Omer period, the time of that counting of 50 days, the Jewish tradition traditionally looks at two twin values on each day. Each day is a different sacred combination. Today, the day of Arlene's Levaya, of her funeral, is Gevura Shebeyesod, a day to lift up strength and foundation. Arlene lived those two poles in her life. Arlene exemplified Gevura, an uncommon, unwavering strength. And Arlene embodied Yesod, a groundedness in the rock-solid foundations of what mattered most. Arlene was strong. College in Indiana lasted only 2 years because Arlene lived in a time and place where women's education was simply not prioritized. Arlene had to leave her formal studies behind and find employment. She began to work as a dental hygienist. During that time period between college and marriage, Arlene's strength showed when she did what women did not do at that time. She toured Europe with her friend JoAnn for 10 weeks. Arlene lived her passions and her adventures and her values in her way. Arlene met Harry on a blind date set up by their friend Les Schneiderman. It was love at first sight. Harry lived in Nebraska and was in Chicago for a work commitment. Soon after they began dating, he invited her home to Omaha for Thanksgiving to meet his family. Not an uncomplicated ask. A few months later, Harry and Arlene were married in March of 1957. Arlene showed strength again when she returned to college, this time in Omaha, to finish her degree. Arlene prioritized her own education and aspirations at a time when women did not receive higher education degrees in great numbers, and certainly not once they married. But Arlene was different. Arlene had gevura. Arlene was strong. Arlene became a mother in 1960 with the birth of Eliza, and then again in 62 with Michael. Arlene was a homemaker during those early years, but she was also a substitute teacher. Even as a young mother, she pursued her passions and her art. Arlene was connected to her synagogue's women's organization, where she sang. She volunteered at the senior home, where she sang. And most of all, it was on the stage and through her music that Arlene came to life. She sang in weddings, in the Omaha Beth El Choir with Opera Omaha, and at the Omaha Playhouse. Arlene may not have liked Omaha very much, but she made the most of it. She sang her heart out, and local audiences were mesmerized by her charm, her beauty, her style, and that voice. As Michael mentioned, when he decided to leave Omaha and study in St. Louis, Arlene showed her strength again. She used her money, which she saved up, to pay for Michael to pursue his dreams, despite the protestations of her husband. Even in her later years, Arlene continued to show that same determination and tenacity. She had a firm sense of right and wrong, and she let you know it. Arlene used her voice as an activist to say what was on her mind, to call out what she deemed unjust, and to advocate for what she believed in. Arlene exemplified one of the sfirot of today, gevura. She was so strong. The second value that mystically is associated with this day is yesod, a reminder of what grounds us and centers us, what lies at our core. Arlene was rooted in her foundation. At Arlene's core was family. Arlene and Harry, especially in their later years, came to rely on each other. While Harry was an introvert content with quiet company, Arlene made social plans and travel plans and holiday plans and more. As her granddaughter Davida recalls, Arlene and Harry, in the final chapters of their life, came to do everything together. They were each devoted to things that were helpful to the other one, and they looked out for each other. Harrison remembered an affectionate moment when Harry requested that a pianist at a restaurant play their song. Harry reached out to Arlene right then and there to dance. And Arlene's grandchildren benefited from her commitment to that foundation of family. When Eliza and Jeff lived in Omaha, Arlene and Harry would come over once a week to spend time with the grandkids, taking them to the zoo or out and about. In fact, when her grandchildren were small was when Arlene retired from her full-time career as a teacher's aide, which she had been serving in since her own children went away to college. And even after living apart, Avishai remembered hanging out at the ranch house in Omaha. He and Davida both recounted the trip to Mexico they took with their grandparents, complete with popsicles in the pool, a highlight. Davida remembers a grandmother who was nurturing and empathic and caring in her words. She describes feeling doted on and loved. Arlene knew what her core was, family. And Arlene's foundation, her yesod, was also steeped in the Jewish tradition. Arlene was very attached to her shul, to her synagogue, always lending her voice in prayer and in music. Arlene was tireless in her desire to spend holidays, chagim, together with her family, and was an expert hostess. Arlene made sure to pass on her love and commitment to the Jewish people, the Jewish homeland, and the Jewish tradition to her children and her grandchildren. In one striking memory, Avishai recalls how his grandmother at the Pesach Seder would pound the table and use her commanding voice to sing out, of all things, Shvo chamatcha, pour out your wrath on our enemies. Here maybe we see Arlene's foundation in the Jewish tradition connected with that strength, that booming voice, that call for justice, devotion to family and tradition, all together, all Arlene. Arlene Richman was strong. Arlene Richman was clear about her foundations, family and faith. Arlene Richman was a human, flawed and imperfect like all of us. And Arlene Richman's life was full of art and music and dance. The song of her life has come to its last note. But those who remember her will hum Arlene's melodies and harmonies, breathe her values and her legacy for years and years to come. Her memory is a blessing. Zichrona livracha. Please rise. We'll say El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim. שוכן במרומים, חמסי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת חווה ליבה, בת חנה ושלמה, שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום המשכבה, ונאמר אמן. Together we can read in the English on the inside of your pamphlet. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Arlene J. Richman, who is gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. Elisa mentioned the land of Israel and what it means to be here, but also far from where we spiritually belong. And so to that end, we have earth from the Holy Land here to place with Arlene before she's lowered into the earth. We'll offer the opportunity to Michael, Avishai, and Davida. I think wanted to participate, yes? You'll just sprinkle some of it on top of the casket. חצור תמים פועלו, כי כל תרחב משפט אל אמונה, ואין עוול צדיק וישר הוא. צדיק אתה אדוני להמית ולהחיות אשר בידך, פיקוד כל רוחות, חלילה לך זיכרוננו למחות. ויהיו נא עיניך ברחמים עלינו פקוחות, כי לך אדון הרחמים והסליחות. אדוני נתן ואדוני לקח, יהי שם אדוני מבורך. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרפא להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כל חמתו. וישוב העפר על הארץ, כשהיה והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתת. יושב בסתר עליון בצל שדי יתלונן, אמר לאדוני מחזי ומצודתי אלוהי יבטחו, כי הוא יצילך מפח יקום, מדבר חוות, ועברתו יסיח לך, ותחת כנפיו תכסה, צינה וסוחרה אמיתה, לא תירא מפחד לילה, מחץ יעוף יומם, מדבר באופל יחלוף. מכתב ישוד סוחריים, ייפול מצדך אלף, ורבבה מימינך, אליך לא ייגש. רק בעינך תביט, ושמלת רשעים תראה, כי אתה אדוני מחסי, עליון שמת מעונך. לא תאונה אליך רעה, ונגע לא יקרב באוהלך. כי מלאכיו יצווך לך, לשמורך בכל דרכיך. על כפיים ישעונך, פן תיגוף באבן רגלך. על שחל ופתל תדרוך, תרמוס כפיר ותנין, כבי חשק ואפלתהו, אסבגהו כי ידע שמי. Burial in our tradition is called chesed shelamet. It's the truest act of kindness we can give. It's the most true kind of chesed because we're in a place where Arlene can't give to us, we can only give to her. And so there's no expectation of return, only gratitude and thanks to see that she's buried by those who knew her. So each person will be invited, beginning with her children, the grandchildren, to place 3 shovels full of earth into Arlene's grave. It's traditional to do the first shovelful with the back side of the shovel, awkwardly, non-normatively. So we're showing that we don't wish we were here, we're hesitating. We're not doing this efficiently, we're doing it with love. Right? The second 2 shovels full, you can do the proper way from the front side. And then we traditionally place the shovel back into the pile rather than handing it to the next person. so that each one can be responsible for their own mitzvah for taking care of doing this themselves. After everyone has had a chance to place some earth into the grave, the gentleman will finish filling the grave with the trucks, and then we'll say Kaddish together. But we'll start with Eliza and with Michael. Everyone else, you're welcome to participate.
I'd just like to announce that the Shiva will be at Michael's home this evening from 7:30 to 9 p.m. at 180 East Pearson.
Jeremy, the burial with the tray.
So we're gonna, if we can complete. So we'll step back as the gentleman from the West Lawn, where are we? Well time. Finish filling in the grave. Okay, folks, we're going to now turn to say Kaddish. So we're going to come back together, everybody. We're going to come back together. Okay. We're going to start. We're going to come back together so that Eliza and Michael can say Kaddish. Up until the point of burial, our hearts are focused on the mitzvah of Kvod Hamed, of honoring the deceased, which is what we've done today. And now we turn to Nichum Avelim, to comforting mourners, and that Nechama has to be tailored to each person. Michael to what you need, and Eliza to what you need, so that we offer the Nechama that is working for your heart. And we join you to that end in saying Kaddish, so that in that you are not alone. Kaddish is on the back of your handout. Eliza and Michael, you can lead the way. I'll be with you. V'yit Kadash Shemei Rabba Be'ama Divra Chirte Ve'amlich Malchote B'chayechon V'yomechon V'chayei Techo Beit Yisrael L'Gala Uvizman Kariv Imru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam Omei Omaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitala Shemei Tekucha Brichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tush B'necha V'nechamata Damiran Be'oma V'imru Amen Ishlama Rabba Min Shemai V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen Oseh Shalom B'imromav Uya Asa Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Amen. Zichrona Livracha, may her memory be a blessing. Everyone, we can turn to Michael and to Eliza, and we'll say these words of comfort, most especially. These are the words that our tradition gives us to say when we don't know what to say. You can repeat after me. Hamakom Yenachem Etchem Betoch She'ar Avile Tzion B'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you, everybody.